Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm supposed to have you, but only have to regulate.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're not required by law.
Oh, and after that.
You watch, most guys not sure what they stand. All you have to do is stand by one side.
Well, up in the fencing.
Oh, yeah.
Get a basketball.
We have a John ball.
Print the whole thing out.
No, there's 17 pages.
Why? Because it's printed the first chapter, it's on taxation, government, revenue, another history lesson.
Yeah.
I don't need to do that.
Oh, sorry.
I call the meeting to order. If you would all please join me and stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
and if you do a roll call for the board.
Nola? Here. Renee? Here. Lee?
Here.
Gary?
Here.
Kelly? Here. Lori here. Jeff?
Here. Next, we have approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion by Nola. Do we have a second? Second by Carrie. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next, we have approval of the past meeting minutes.
I make a motion.
Motion by Carrie, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Nola, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next, we have the treasurer's report. And do we have any questions on the treasurer's report? Obviously, with the treasurer changing over, interesting times. Otherwise, we will place the treasurer's report on file. Next, we have the paying of the bills.
Make a motion.
Carrie makes the motion. Do we
I'll
have a second?
second that.
Second by Renee. Any discussion on the bills? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes, ma'am.
Nola?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Lori, yes. Jeffrey?
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have the fire department report. If you would, Chief Stiles.
Thank you. As you saw in my enclosed report, the two biggest things, obviously, our call line is still staying steady where it's at. And the decision was made that we were going to hold off on our fire prevention just because we think it's the best for us. It just isn't something that we really want to try to just bring ourselves up to it right now. I know other organizations have had them. We've already had some kickback from those happening with people having some other issues and a low turnout. As you know, we spend quite a bit of money to put that on, and to have a very low turnout is not real cost prohibitive. So I'm going to try and just push it off for right now and try and change it here in the spring, see if we can do something a little different and shake it up a little bit. So the last thing we had was all the documents have been signed for the heavy rescue. It is in process now. Chassis should be delivered to the manufacturer in December, with anticipation to be delivered sometime April or May. Obviously, we did talk about that before. The cost did go up a little bit, but that's with everything. Everything saw a 30% increase. There's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is, but we're well within, as you hear from the audit today, we're well within enough money to be able to do it, so I'm pleased to say that. The unfortunate news we got on Friday was you know, we'd put in for the federal FEMA grant. I just got the results, and the results actually said that there was 8,150 requests requesting $2 billion from the federal government. They were able to fund 1,887 of those at $319.5 million. Unfortunately, we were not part of that group. We did make it to the last week, which told me we were real close, but unfortunately, the federal government ran out of money to be able to give it to us. So we're going to go back again next year and rewrite the grant, which the anticipation was we will get it that time. So it is what it is, but it did take out that $48,000 budget, so we'll be safe with we actually spent that money. So it's a blessing, but it's also a curse. But we'll keep trying, and have 2 more grants we're going to write for this year as well, so we'll continue to move forward with that. But you'll hear about our funding when Mr. Nadab speaks about the audit. Other than that, I have nothing unless you have questions for me.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you.
Next, we have the planning commission report, if you would, Lee.
Let's see, we met September 28th. It was another short meeting, only 2 agenda items. First was the unfinished business from the previous month. It was site plan review for a Class A growth facility. Planning commission needed more building details, specifications. Applicant came back with more information, and motion was approved. Second was a draft amendment to the zoning ordinance of 4.1, or 4.41, and 16.45. They were discussed in previous meetings. Section 4.41 deals with attached garage size in relation to ground floor home square footage. 16.45 amendments deal with outdoor storage as part of the mini warehousing special land use. And the commission approved a motion to remove verbiage prohibiting outdoor storage previously planned. And we'll go to public hearing.
All right, thank you, Lee. Next, we have a small presentation by Chris Cross on senior village snow plowing. On this, we had put money into H-Well, like the township has been doing previously, while we assessed what may be most useful, and this has come up as a potential opportunity. And if you would, Chris.
So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share our program. So I represent Living Word Church in Muskegon, and 2 years ago, the county came to us. They have the senior millage that's collected tax county-wide, and the #1 need by seniors was snow removal. And so we were asked as a church if we can do that, and at first we were sort of, that's a lot, but we took it on us, and God's given us a great sport. So we, through the county, are funded for 100 seniors in the entire county. Without doing much calling, I already had 83 of those spots filled. And calls are still coming in, and I still have to make more phone calls from previous seniors. So that list is going to be filled before the first snowfall. Fruitport Township, earlier this year, decided to use some of their township funding to fund the program for their citizens. What's great about that is their funds only go for the citizens in their township, so we're able to localize. So while there's 100 seniors in the entire county, 28 additional seniors are just for Fruitport. So they really can take care of the seniors in their township. And so that's what we're offering for other townships. How it works is, we do it, the funding request is based on every snowplow company we talk to, they did a rate, an average of 20 pushes per year. We call it push anytime you go out and clear the snow. And so the funding would be, if one senior was funded, it would be $38.50 per push for 20 pushes. Now, I'm not sure, do they all have a copy of the proposal?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure you can see that for later, because that answers most of, goes into detail. So that what's great is it's scalable. If you want to fund 5 seniors, you can do that. It's just $38.50 times 20 equals 1 senior's funding, and you can multiply that if it's 5, if it's 10. Fruitport, I believe, did 20. And really just got to look at your township and see what you think is needed. And what's great about it is, let's say we have a light winter, there's only 10 times we have to plow. Then you only use half that funding. You don't pay us unless we do the work. So how we redo it with Fruitport and the county is, we, at the end of the month, so let's say December, hey, we did 100 seniors 3 times. We only get paid for those 3 pushes. So if you do decide to fund the program, you only spend the money that, you only pay us for what we use. So just because we ask for funding for a full 20 pushes, does not mean we'll do it. I think last year was 19 pushes, it was a heavy snow. So that is the program. We come out only when it's 3 inches or more. So we don't, if it's a dusting, we're not gonna waste our time and your money going out and plowing. All the funds, nothing goes to the church as a profit. The funds cannot be used to pay for renting office space or anything like that. It does not go towards the building at all to pay for that. All the funding goes directly to pay for our workers. Insurance, as you probably know, dealing with vehicles are expensive, so to keep maintenance. So all the funding goes right back into that. That is a requirement of the senior village. So yeah, that's the program. I'd love to answer any questions if there is any, but that's my brief synopsis of the program.
Are there any questions?
What if there's more, like, I'm thinking we're gonna have a super hard winter shoot, just by the amount of acorns in my yard, you know, and all the pine cones that are on the trees, I'm thinking that there's gonna be a ton. I mean, do you guys reach out to the seniors at all before plowing, saying, do you predict you're getting out this week? Because a lot of seniors necessarily don't get out every time we have 3 inches of snow, and is there any way of tracking that type of a thing where?
As to which need to be done because they didn't get out. No, as you can imagine, we have right now 130. We're expecting over 150 seniors will be serving. That's a lot of phone calls for every time it snows.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Age Well Services, great program that I understand you guys fund. They do Meals on Wheels. They deliver food. You have in-care nurses and stuff that have to go there. So a lot of seniors may not leave, but they need they're cleared to get delivered because if it's not plowed, the meals on wheels will not pull to the drive and they'll get stuck.
Right.
So that we just do not have the staff to call. That would be one way to help, but I don't have the time or the staff.
I'm just curious.
Of course.
Okay. And how many people do you already have people booked on this program already?
Oh, 100%, yes. I get calls every day coming in. And once I get to 100 for the county, I have to start putting them on the waiting list. And it's because I can only do what the county funds me for. And I think you did mention about what if we ran out, because the funding's for 20 pushes. So if we're going to the end of January, and let's say we used up 14 of the pushes, February, as you guys know probably, is probably going to be the heaviest snow. We're going to have to spread it out and stretch it. So once we start looking at the season, okay, let's wait till 4 inches. We're going to have to be just smart with the money that's given to us. It's a heavy responsibility, so we want to make sure we use those funds properly. So if we're looking at, we may need to stretch it, or if it's going to be 25 to 30 pushes, which I doubt would happen, we'd have to communicate with the townships and the county saying, we'll run out of funds, we may be able to do 1 or 2 pushes without being funded, but that's going to wear and tear our vehicles, we have to pay for them.
And I communicated with the county treasurer and the county health department, a lot of this runs through the county health department, about if we could use these funds this early, because we're in a different fiscal year than the county. They start in October, we start in April, and we can. So it is an option for this winter, and I figure I'll bring it next month for an actual decision, and that way we can study those numbers more for one and come up with what may work.
So one other question, sorry. So if he already has a full list, like how do you divide, like if people from Dalton Township need this service, okay, how do you differentiate, and how do we know how many people, and do we just contact Living Word Church to find out the details of it?
Yes, well, there's a direct line, phone line for the service. So the people do call the church, but they also call the direct line.
Okay.
And if you're saying that the list is full, what's great about funding the township funds, you get, all that funding goes to the seniors in your township. It's just like, so we have we have funding for 100 seniors in the entire county, but Fruitport has 20 of their own. That's a completely separate list that we bill separately and everything, so that's on top of the 100. So that's completely separate. So if the list gets full, we're gonna go based on need and income. So someone, 95% are on only Social Security income, no 401k or anything like that. So all of them tend to be low income. But, so it's really hard, but if there's someone that we pull up and they have, let's just be honest, they have a couple cars in the driveway and their kids live with them, okay, we're gonna probably prioritize someone else over.
I would think so, definitely.
Chris, are you proposing that we fund 20 clients on Dalton Township? Is that the baseline, or is?
That's the baseline I proposed, but this is only the second township.
Okay.
that we've done, and it's honestly something where you guys know your seniors a lot better than I do. You don't know your population
Yeah.
of what you think is needed. So that template is the same I gave to Fruitport, so I'm not sure what your population looks like that you think is a need. I know what Fruitport did is they put out surveys with their water bill and
Yep.
such, and they got a lot of response that way, and that's how they knew that snow was a big need for them. So I'm not sure what the number would be for Dalton. I
Did
can
we
answer that.
get that information about what he's proposing for the seniors that we have in the community?
Just send out surveys to everyone now, that'd be another year.
My question, Chris, if we say we say 15 clients, and then you let us know that we fill up like this,
Mhm.
we can change that number, can't we?
It all comes down to funding, yes. And if you think for sure, let's say you're talking, you know you have the votes, but you have to wait till next month for the board meeting. You already gave us the funds for 20 pushes, so we could start doing the other 5 or 10 or whatever that is. It's just we wouldn't be able to go as long until we got approval for the full funding.
So it's just a matter of what we tell
You tell me.
All right, that works.
Thank you.
All right, anything else?
I like it.
Perfect, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Next, we have the event that everyone is looking forward to. Wow. Which is the audit presentation, if you would, Eric.
Hello all, I'm Eric Van Dapp of Berkeley Legal Law. We completed your audit for your year ended March 31, 2021, and I am just here to give a brief overview and answer any questions you might have. It looks like I think I see books in front of most of you, so I think you guys for the most part have these books. Most of what I talk about I'll keep up on the screen, but pretty much everything I do talk about is in the books and in most cases in more detail. So I don't know what's going on my projector today, but it decided to have this funny color. It's white on my screen, but maybe the bulb's going on it, so we get this little funny bluish tinge. All right, the first part of the audit, which is the most important part on pages 1 and 2, is the independent auditor's report. It's a big, long opinion letter where we express our opinion on the financial statements. That opinion letter is what makes us an audit rather than just a set of financial statements. But the key paragraph is the opinion paragraph where we say the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the various financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, and that means exactly what it says based on our testing and procedures and inquiries and everything else. We believe your financial statements are fairly reflected in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles in all material respects. And we do use the word in all material respects because by material respects we mean we're looking at the big picture. You can't grant absolute assurance because we can't look at every single transaction. We're looking more at the bigger picture. So that's the boring part. I know numbers are more exciting. I would note, but behind the opinion letter, I think starting on page 3 is the management discussion and analysis. That's like a 6 or 7 page document. And that's kind of an overview of the financial statements from the township's perspective. That's a nice document to go to kind of get a nice overview without having to slog through all the financial statements. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at that, or if you have citizens or somebody that are interested that don't want to go through the whole thing, that's kind of the Cliff Notes version. Anyway, for the general fund, I've got that up on the screen here. This is broken out in more detail on page 37, but I kind of boil it down to keep it all on one slide, and I also put the prior year on here. But if you want to see it broken out by department in more detail, 37 is where you want to be. Total revenues of $1,395,083, up about $49,000 from last year. You can see property taxes are up about $15,000. Of course, taxable values are coming up, which is nice for the township. Licenses and permits are up there about $16,000. Cable franchise fees have been coming up there as well. And then charges for services there are up about $25,000, as you guys have gotten increased revenue from the transfer station and some additional zoning and variance fees. So that's all good news with some of your main revenue sources creeping up there a little bit. Investment earnings, as you can see, are down about $22,000, but I'm sure you guys are all well aware that there's really nowhere to put your money right now that you can earn a decent return on it, unless you want to put it in the stock market or something, but the township's not lawfully allowed to do that. You guys are restricted by state requirements on where you can put your money. So a little bit of a loss there. Reduction in revenue, I should say. On the expenditure side, total expenditures at $1,439,272. That's down about $63,000 from last year. The general government area, you can see there that dropped a bit. You've got some savings there with less attorney usage. Buildings and grounds are also down in that category as well, with less part-time help and no significant repairs and maintenance projects this year. I would then note public works, you can see that one actually went up a bit, about $161,000. That's where probably the most fluctuation of the township is, because that's where your road projects are. And that just depends on how many road projects you guys do in a given year. That can go up and down quite a bit. Obviously, you guys had a little bit more this year. And then not much going on in capital outlay this year, so there's a big decrease there. That $12,000 was just a one vehicle purchase. So overall, got a revenues reduction. Expenditures exceed revenues by about $44,000. Some proceeds from the sale of capital assets, some transfers out to some other funds. Overall, fund balance decreases $61,511, and ending fund balance of $1,692,285. So a couple of years with some small reductions in fund balance, but you do continue to have a healthy reserves there. Any questions on the general fund? All right, it's your favorite fund, Chief. The fire fund. This appears on the next page, on page 38. I have more room, so I put more years up here. Total revenues of $544,600. That's up about $26,000. Again, you see the same increase in property taxes of about $20,000 with taxable value going up. And looking at 4 years, you can kind of see that nice progression there as well, as that's continued to increase. Other categories are pretty similar to last year. On the expenditure side, total expenditures of $412,806. You kind of got to look at the two parts. There's the operating piece and the capital piece. The operating piece went up a little bit this year due to the purchase of air packs, uniforms, stuff like that. Those are considered operations because although they cost more in total on an individual basis, they're not considered capital. The capital side, on the other hand, is down quite a bit. It's $27,000 this year for a Durango. The last couple of years, you've been buying the big fire truck out there. So overall, then, you've got an increase of, well, there was a sale of capital assets of 12, so you've got an increase in fund balance of $143,794. Ending fund balance of $670,051. And I would note, I probably should have put this in the bottom of the slide, but you guys have two different millages there, and the split between the millages is about $643,000 of that's the operating millage, and about $26,000 of that's the capital of the equipment millage. And the equipment millage reserves came down quite a bit because of those two big purchases in the prior years, and it's starting to build up again. I know you guys have some big stuff coming up here in the next year too, but that millage is generating a nice little pot of money to be able to fund those purchases. Any questions on the fire fund? Okay. All right, then we've got your other big fund, your sewer fund here. That lives up in the front of the financial statements if you wanted to see it in there on page 18. But again, I should have most of it on the screen here. You'll see activities down quite a bit here, as you're well aware, having to do with the COVID pandemic and all that. Michigan's Adventures become one of your biggest users. And we're talking the summer of last year, not this summer. They were not open a whole lot last summer, so the flow into your system was down quite a bit correspondingly. So you see a decrease of $117,000 to $81,000 for operating revenues. Same thing on the expense side. The nice thing is, if you're not getting the revenue, you're not paying the money out either, because you don't have to pay the county to treat it. So you see a drop there of about $42,000. So overall operating loss of about $56,000, and you've got under non-operating activities, investment earnings, interest expense, leaves you with an overall decrease in that position of about $106,000 and ending that position at $904,000. Just a kind of a reminder for those of you who are new, the sewer fund uses a different kind of accounting than your other funds. The other funds use what we call modified accrual, which just focuses on current resources. This uses more like private business accounting, full accrual accounting. And the reason I bring that up, we use the term net position instead of fund balance because it actually means something different. Unlike the general fund and the fire fund where you're just looking at your current cash and receivables and payables, this actually includes everything, all your fixed assets, your pipe in the ground, your debt, all that kind of thing. So that doesn't mean you have $904,000 available. Some of that's already in the ground as pipe in the ground. Your unrestricted net position gives you a better idea of what your actual reserves are, and that's actually creeped up a little bit over the last few years, which is kind of nice for the township. I know there's been you've got some big debt out there that you're working to pay off, but that's about $528,000. With Michigan's Adventure hooking up and some other changes being made, it's kind of boosted your revenue coming in over the last few years. But I still think down the road, in a few years, this fund is going to continue to eat through what it has because you're not quite generating enough money to cover all those future debt payments. So the township's definitely bought itself a few years, but probably down the road a little bit, you may have to look at some kind of assistance from the general fund, that's the sewer fund obligations. But again,
We're looking at adjustments now for that statement in the future, and you, a little ways in the future, you're estimating is that 3-4 years, somewhere in there? Is it
yeah, I'd
longer,
say
slightly
3 to
less?
4 years as things currently stand, and that's kind of a swag. Obviously, we can't predict what happens depending on, things being shut down and all that. But, at one point, frankly, probably about 7 or 8 years further out than it looked like you were going to be a few years ago. So we've been able to generate some additional income from the Michigan Adventure connections and some other changes as well. But things are good now for the very near future, but definitely out just a few years, you're going to have to look at, like you said, whether it's rate adjustments or some other changes, and able to cut in order to cover those debt payments. So, I think, let's see, those go out to 2037, so they're out another 16 years after their balance. All right, any other questions of the sewer fund? Okay, I think that was my last slide. It is. Anything else that I either talked about or didn't talk about that you guys want to visit in the blue book? Otherwise, I've got a couple other things to talk about too. But before I move on, any other number questions or anything? Okay. For the most part, though, I think that if you're looking at, the sewer fund's down a little bit, but it's still in reasonable shape as of today. The general fund is down a little bit, but still doing pretty well. The fire fund's reserves are building up. Most of your funds are in pretty good shape. So, good news for the most part there. Otherwise, the other thing I wanted to mention, you guys have a couple letters. I just briefly want to touch bases on those and what they are and why you have them. The one letter says we have audited the financial statements, et cetera, of Dalton Township. This is just a required letter we have to provide every year that for every audit we do. It's technically called the auditor's letter to those charged with governance, which in your case is the township board. Very specific things have to be included in this letter. Things that we looked at just to report to you, even though I'm here actually telling you, we still have to put it in writing. So, qualitative aspects of accounting practices, we would note if there were any significant new accounting standards adopted this year. There were not any. We note that we looked at your estimates and believe they're reasonable. If there were any difficulties encountered performing the audit, delays or anything like that, we would note that. There were not any corrected and uncorrected adjustments, so we've got some audit adjustments attached on there. Any disagreements with management, we would note again, there weren't any, and there's a few other odds and ends, but for the most part, this is a pretty what I would call vanilla letter. There's not a lot of unusual stuff in here. I just want to let you know what it is and why you have it. I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time dwelling on it. It's just one of those things we're required under professional standards to generate. On the other letter, we've got just some recommendations. We are here to do your audit. We are here to audit your financial statements and express an opinion on them. That was that opinion letter we looked at for this book. We're not here to express an opinion or audit your internal controls, but we do, in the course of doing an audit, obtain an understanding of your controls, plan and perform our procedures, and we just come across things. So if we come across items that we think could use improvement, we issue a recommendation letter. I just definitely want to emphasize we're not saying that this is all there is. There could very well be other items. These are just things we came across. So we've just got some recommendations on improving your closing procedures and some other reconciliations and some improvements in documentation and review and approval. But just passing those along to you guys. But otherwise, that's pretty much about it for me. So as big as that lead-in for me was, I'm sure you have more exciting things to talk about than me. So I will cut it off here, but I'll leave one final chance for any final questions.
Could you send those slides to me? I like the year-to-year comparison.
Sure, I can do that. Yep. I will do that. So, okay, I will get out of your hair then. Thank you very much. Thanks to staff here for getting everything ready for us, especially Lori. I know we just drive her nuts for 3 days or thereabouts, and thanks to the board for having us out to do your audit, and we look forward to seeing you again next year. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you, I assume, have to get going?
Yes, I have a second board meeting I got to run through tonight. So yep.
Yeah, no problem at all.
So I will pack up and get out of here.
Appreciate the time.
You got it.
Next, we have our first public comment section. And on this, obviously, our first public comments, we've been being a little more business fashion with. So I'll have the timer, which will go 1 minute for green, 1 minute for yellow, 1 minute for red. Also, for the first public comment as a board, we won't get into discussion, we're allowing people to comment, because we want to get more loud than the second public comment, so we can. I'm fine with that, I like having the discussion myself. So if there is anyone that would like to come up and comment on an agenda item, if you would please come up to the lectern, and you can wait for a minute if you want to allow these guys to do their stuff around on the table as well. We'll talk about it. He has to bring a lot of equipment. Would be nice in the future, we can look at it in the budget of having a better audio-visual setup where the public and the board can both see the presentation a little better would be nice.
Those big 100-inch TVs.
Yes. Something for a budget discussion. Yeah, you come up, say your name if you would.
My name is Jennifer Hall. I'm not a public speaker, so bear with me. I actually came in to speak to you guys about the land sale off White Lake Drive. I saw there was another bid. I placed my bid. There was another bid. So I came in today and placed a second bid to show my interest in the property. I wanted to come talk to you and tell you what I plan to do with it. I plan to use this land to build a home for my children and myself. I currently live in Blue Lake Township, and I'm excited and eager to come join your guys' community. I've always rented, and purchasing this land would be my first step in making my dreams come true to become a homeowner. And that's it. Do you guys, I don't know if do you guys have any questions? I don't know if you do that or not.
Not normally.
Okay.
Not really a discussion section. We do appreciate the comment. We will, early in the schedule, we'll be to opening up these bids.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment?
I promise to be good.
Yeah, sure.
We'll practice.
I just have a couple of questions. I just have a question about the invoice for the distribution report pertaining to the mileage for a training session that I think Lori's going to. I just have a question about how you determine mileage. As far as, is it just from point A to point B and then back? And also the multiplication that was done for the 274.56 cents is not correct for the total that is given on the amount that the check was written for. And then also this may seem trivial, but I just wonder why the bottled water usually runs $8 to $16 a month or whatever, all of a sudden it's $70. So I was just wondering what caused that to kind of go up.
The bottled water is because we actually put a bottle of water
Okay.
container in the maintenance, yep, in the,
Yeah,
yep. So
I
that was
thought
the
of that
first,
too.
yep.
That's what I
So,
just
yeah,
wanted
so
to
that's
know.
why that
I'm
was,
not trying to-
it should be down now, because it's
Okay.
just gonna be replaced in water.
No, I just wondered because it just.
And on my mileage, it's based on mileage from the township hall to
Yeah.
Frankenmuth and back.
I thought it was at Mount Pleasant.
No, I went to training in Frankenmuth.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
and
It
I
says
did-
that you're going to training and
that's, I already went.
it says 11:30 to 12:02.
No, that's, no, she didn't change the date. No, I already went to Frankenmuth.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm just saying.
No, that's
because
okay,
here
it
says
might
that
be different because
going
I actually
at the end of
had,
November to.
I don't turn in mileage until I go.
Well, that was my other
Yeah,
question. Did we
no,
not just?
she might have not changed the dates.
Okay,
that's
that
fine.
was just my
And then
question.
it might be different because I actually had one meal on there.
Well, no,
too.
I'm here.
No,
was
we
just
put it all
questioning because it says
together.
that
No,
you go at the end of
you're very
November
well.
to in December.
No.
So, and I was trying to figure out the miles to Mount Pleasant.
No, it's, and I'm not going to the train to Mount Pleasant until November, so yeah, you're right.
All right, my time's up, I gotta go.
No, you're good. No, that's fine, no.
With the, I just wondered what, with the audit thing, like previous year to this year, I mean, I don't understand this, I'm trying to understand. But the fair value measurements of assets, like in 2020, it said that our fair value measurements was $1,308,567. And then this year it said it was $217,000, so I was wondering like what that difference is, why there's like a huge difference in that? I don't understand that number.
Yeah, if you would.
Yeah,
We purchased $500,000 fire truck.
okay, fine.
So
I'm
when you
just
have,
wondering.
no, you're completely fine. When you have something that's a fair market value, everything that the township owns, whether it be fire service or the township itself, everything is assessed at a federal rate, and that goes up or down based on what the federal government tells us.
Oh, yeah.
So when we purchased the new fire truck plus the new vehicle and the new air packs, that is what he had talked about capital, we heard him talk about capital expenditures.
Right.
That is something that has a life or a shelf life, and it depreciates or increases depending on what it is. That's why when you look at an audit, and
Yeah.
those don't understand how audits work, when you look at an audit, you have to look over a 3 to 5 year period,
Okay.
because you have to look at what is coming in and what is going out.
Okay.
So like an appreciation,
What was this,
depreciation.
okay,
Yep.
it was just
It's
a
all-
big difference, so I'm like, what's?
Yep, nope, it's all,
Oh, that's what it is, yeah.
That was it?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Good. Any other public comment? For the first public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to our decision items. The first one is the land sale, and these are the parcels that we put up as a whole together last month for a minimum of $25,000. I did end up receiving 3 bids that are sealed, so I will open these now. First one is for $25,000 even. Second one is for $29,500. And the third is for $27,000.
Did you make a motion to accept the bid for $29,500, is it?
$29,500 was the highest.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Noah, second by Carrie. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Noah?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes, ma'am.
Lee?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Lori, yes. Jeffrey?
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have Ordinance 2021-14 for Consumers Energy Franchise Agreement. And Rich, if you just want to come up and speak on it just for a minute or two.
Yeah, thanks. Rich Holloman, Community Affairs Manager for Consumers Energy. I just live up the street. Lakewood's going through the same thing right now. So about every 30 years or so, this ordinance comes back. It's pretty much just a general framework. Is a creature of the Michigan Constitution, and kind of just outlines how we do business in your community and expectations around that, how we perform our infrastructure installations and repairs, and holding the township harmless. So again, 30 years, I always was a long time ago, and a lot of time on the future. But we need time to be your provider as long as we can. So we'd love to do another 30 years. If any questions of me around the ordinance itself?
Not around the ordinance, but I want to know, how come the lights shut off and come back on?
That's probably bad photos. And so what we would like, we have a new, a really cool new streetlight tool. So if you want to report online, it's GPS enabled.
Okay.
So you can actually just find the light, click it, report it, and it's really slick. I've been trying to get that information out to the township. You may have seen that. Lori, I think I may have sent it to you too. So yeah, we're trying to get that out there because it is a really efficient way to get those reports in. Because we want to get those turned around. And so a lot of folks know that we are converting high pressure sodium lights, the orange ones, to LEDs. And we feel like they use about half the energy that the high pressure sodiums use. And we repair about 8% of your system a year. So we think of the 160,000 lights that we have in the state of Michigan, we're hoping by around 2030 or so, we'll have the state mostly converted. And that's at no extra charge. We're just doing that. And then even about half, about half the rate.
I live in the village and there's this one light that always cuts off, but then it
Oh,
comes
yeah.
back on, and then it cuts off, and
Yeah,
you would
we
just
may-
think if it was going bad, it would stay off. But it doesn't.
Sometimes in
It
those
keeps coming back
situations,
on.
if the light's pretty good, we may just swap out the photocell in those situations and wait on the full conversion.
I was just curious.
Yeah, it's probably
It's
photocell.
happening in front of my house.
Yeah, it's
I'm
probably
curious about that,
photocell.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I make a motion to move to adopt the ordinance 2021-14 to renew the Consumers Energy Franchise Ordinance in all towns.
Motion by Carrie, do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Renee, any discussion? And I just want to hit on this, that utilities, because it seems like we're signing an exclusive deal, only they can do it and keeps other people out, but that is not it. According to the state constitution, that would be illegal for a township to do, so that's not included. And I would say that the biggest impact that it has on the township is the hold harmless. That's a good thing to have in place.
Right.
Also says right here in section 5 that the franchise is not exclusive.
Yeah, some of the other utility companies are a little less explicit when they write their contracts, but the consumers are very explicit. Any other discussion? Roll call vote?
Gary.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Nola.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Lori, yes. Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have ordinance 2021-15 for the ORV amendment. And specifically on this, obviously, we've been going through the ORV stuff recently. We are the first township to properly pass one in the county, and I know it's been an issue in a few different townships. Specifically on this, when we passed it, it was brought to my attention afterwards that one of the limits on there was for roads over, and we talked about this, roads over 30 miles an hour. And we're trying to stick with the state, the various state statutes and restrictions and those types of things. And that one I could not then confirm and find in the MCL. So the one where 30% of your roads, not 30 miles per hour, 30% of your roads can be restricted by the county road commission is the thing, and we have that road restriction list on here as Exhibit A. And so that's included here. So the only adjustment made here is that 30 miles per hour. And well, I will note that Lori ended up taking the lead on writing this and getting it done. I had written the first versions, and then we found out that it was more complex legally, and we had to do much more notification and everything. And she put a lot of effort in putting together the ORV ordinance, and I think it came together well. We'll see how it works over time.
Every other township pays, we know.
Yes, the other townships, the fact that we did it properly, and they did not came to light, I think that's okay. Friends with a number of them. Do we have a motion now?
I make a motion to adopt the ordinance 2021-15 to amend the off-road vehicle ordinance in Dalton Township.
I will second it.
Motion by Carrie, second by Noah. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Gary.
Yes.
Nola. Yes. Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Lee.
Yes.
Kelly. Yes. Lori, yes. Jeffrey.
Yes, motion passes. Next, we have resolution 2021-35 for the ORV application and sticker. And so because of the way you have to publish everything for ordinances, township laws to come out, this will go into effect, the ordinance that we passed last month, on the 19th of this month, which allows us to review the application and the permit, which permit in this case means sticker, and get that done now. And this was drawn up in such a way that it's fairly simple to fit on a single page. Obviously, the resident pack is out, so anyone that wants to review it has been able to. And the stickers, which we don't have yet, do we have words on the stickers? Did we get the stickers? We've been waiting on the stickers. They will look like that.
Everybody loves it.
Simple little squares, we'll go with different colors for different years, obviously. Assuming everyone familiar with general or the sticker process.
So is this on, I mean, this would have to be on top of, our WRB sticker or whatever?
Correct.
This is just to cover fees and stuff for Peter, or what's my other question?
Well,
So on this, the way it's written as of now, there are not fees.
You just have to apply.
no, you just have to apply, And basically, we want to know what your vehicle is, what the model is, what the color is, what your VIN is. We want to know your insurance carrier. And then there's a release and waiver of claims pursuant to the ORB ordinance that needs to be signed and dated, and then we issue a permit every year. We just look at stickers.
And I think it would be reasonable for there to be fees, I assume that at some point in the future.
If it becomes,
The near future.
yeah,
but-
if it becomes like very, very cost prohibitive, then yeah.
Right now, the small amounts for the stickers coming out of the Parks and Recreation Fund, or is coming out.
What is the cost?
The stickers, I got 100 stickers for $55.
I mean, for someone to purchase them.
There is,
There is no cost. All they need to do is fill out the form, provide the information, and I issue a sticker.
Free. I move to adopt resolution 2021-35 to establish registration of ORVs and issue permits to residents starting on October 19, 2021.
motion by Nolan, second by Carrie, any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Nola,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Lee, Kelly,
Yes.
Lori, yes, Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have resolution 2021-36 for fire and emergency charges. This came up as a discussion, we've discussed it a number of times in meetings, and it came up because we had a drought this spring, and we had a lot of forest fires at that time, long response times to get those under control. We inquired into if charges were in place. It ended up becoming one of those things that was a little more complex. There was an ordinance passed in 2000. In that, it included that a resolution needed to be passed to establish the specific charges, and that had not been done. And I included the meeting minutes from 2000, the ordinance from 2000, a resolution adopting that ordinance, and a resolution a few months later changing the name in that same year, but there is no resolution actually establishing those fire charges. And so on this, I talked to the fire department about what approach to bring, and we talked about this as well. We decided to go in a conservative direction, and so the resolution that I wrote up here brings fire charges when arson has been found or when it has been a habitual offender. So it's a pretty conservative approach on this, and the big sticking point, the big political issue is that people are paying taxes, and then are you paying taxes when you're also getting charged when they're responding? So that becomes a big thing, and even the fire department wasn't fully comfortable with that. And then the other thing is, when this was passed, if you look through the meeting minutes at that time in 2000, someone was supposed to be hired 3 days a week to do billings for these through the fire department. I don't know if that was ever implemented or how long it was done at that time. Actually, Howard is here, he probably knows the answer, and I did not ask him before. But at some point that fell off and was not done, was not followed up with. So for all this, I think to resolve it and get it in place so everything is set, because we said we'd try to tackle any problems that we encounter that come up. I wrote this up in a conservative approach, and this will override anything that is in the past.
I make a motion to approve resolution 2021-36 concerning fire and emergency service charges.
I'll second that.
Motion by Renee, second by Carrie. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call a vote.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Harry,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Lori, yes, Jeffrey.
Yes, motion passes. Next, we have the land sale policy. obviously we've been allowing people to request land and putting them up for sale, getting them back on the tax roll, and the township owns a lot of land. We've been through a bit of that history. For instance, in 1987, we received 15,000 pieces of tiny land from the county and the state, and there was a newspaper article that I found written on that and that type of thing. Part of that's turned into the horse trail, I believe that was in 1990, but a lot of it is just sitting there on the tax roll that the township is carrying. So moving forward with that, we have found a couple of sticking points in the land sale policy. One is that it specifically listed the White Lake Beacon to advertise in, but sometimes it's cheaper and seems to reach more people if you were to advertise in the Muskegon Chronicle. Because the policy was written up with a specific place to publish it, that's been rewritten. And Kim, the deputy clerk, has really taken the lead on this because she takes all the information for the land sales and applications and follows up. The information that I include in packets comes from her. And so that's been adjusted. There was not a specific place in there where it said who signs. And so traditionally, the clerk's office handles that, so Lori goes and signs. We did run into one where the title company didn't want that to occur, so I went to closing, which is perfectly fine. But since it's otherwise being handled through the clerk's office, it's reasonable for that to occur. So that's written here that the clerk's office is essentially the primary on that. The supervisor is then the next spot as being the legal agent for the township. And also, it would be nice to establish a minimum amount for pieces of land, but it's very difficult to do just as a flat piece because we've had tiny pieces that attach to someone else's property that are only worth a few $100s. They're worth almost nothing, and they're not worth to anyone except for the properties that adjoin to them. And so in this case, Kim has written up in such a way that recover the title and the closing costs and that type of thing. Ends up being the minimum, which I checked with her and she said we can calculate that beforehand. So those are the major changes that occur in here. The way I wrote up the suggested motion includes correcting any incidental grammatical adjustments because I think there are some capitalization issues in here. And I didn't want to have Kim rewrite the whole thing just to adjust for those at this time. So.
I make a motion to approve the change of Dalton Township land sale policy as presented, presenting incidental grammatical adjustments as necessary.
Motion by Carrie, supported by Lee. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Nola.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Kelly.
Yes.
Lori, yes. Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have the laptop purchase. Specifically on this, we have quotes in here. That's for 2 laptops. And the reason that was because Lori was reaching out about a laptop. She's with the adjustments in the office and personnel and administrative assistants. She's taking back over running the cemeteries, which is normally done through the clerk's office, but hasn't been done in Dalton for a long time. I'm not sure when that changed. And over a decade somewhere. And I said, well, if you're looking at it, look at how much it would be for me to end up with a laptop as well. It'd be nice if you're out somewhere and have access to those. And a lot of times in the county, a lot of their electronics and meeting. And I sit on the Water Policy Board and the Wastewater Management Committee and the Berry Junction Trail Committee. But we are limited in equipment because it has to go through dispatch, because it has to be able to connect through their systems and be secure. And so the prices are relatively high. And that's why the motion is only for 1, because I don't think it's necessary for me to have one at those prices.
I make a motion to approve the purchase of 1 Dell laptop, 7420, for the clerk's office for $2,131,800.
I'll second that.
Motion by Carrie, seconded by Renee. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Nola.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Lori, yes. Jeffrey.
Yes, motion passes. Next, we have our discussion items. The first one being the cell tower lease. This came out of nowhere. I was contacted by American Tower, who has the cell tower up on White Lake Drive there near Russell, and the one that we have. And they said that Verizon is having some issues, which I saw a little bit in the news, but I don't know details on. And they're trying to renegotiate their things to have better prices, all these different leases. And in this case, because they have to pay us a certain amount of money, they can't negotiate down any further. And they're afraid that they might lose Verizon as a client. They don't have anyone else as a lead for that cell tower. So then the cell tower will just be sitting there with less coverage in the area and no money for us. I believe this brings in a little over $12,000 a year for the township. I have drawn up a few different proposals on this. The one is a rent reduction, so it goes down to $1,025 per month with a 7% escalation every 5 years. The second option is perpetual easement with a one-time payment of $165,250 for a perpetual lease. And then the perpetual easement in 10-year installments is $1,667.52 per month for 10 years, which results in a total of $200,102.10. And so with these three different options, I think it's obvious that the proper thing to do is to choose the best benefit. We're not voting on this at this time. This is a discussion item. So I want to bring it for discussion so that we can review it, we can look at actually voting on it next month. And we need to take the best interest of the township over the long term. And that seems obvious that it would be the lowest amount that stays in place forever. I think it can be slightly more complex if...
Is that the one-time payment?
No, the one-time payment is $165,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so option one is where it just stays in place forever. There's no expiration on it.
This is every 5 years.
So a 7% increase in the amount every 5 years.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then there's the one-time, well, it is, it's forever, it just keeps going up every 5 years. Yeah, so that one's set up perfectly. And the other two have expirations, one essentially immediately, the other one in 10 years. So the discussion really ends up being, if we take the lower amount per month and it stays in place for another 20 years, the township makes out. If we take that and then they end up leaving in 5 years, we end up missing money, is essentially what happens. I mean, from my perspective, no matter how much trouble Verizon is in, I think they're probably one of those companies that is too big to fail and will be bailed out at some point. And however you agree with that politically as an issue, I assume that 20 years from now, Verizon will still be a company that's operating, they will still have leases on cell tower companies. So from my perspective, it makes sense to take the lower amount per month, but not have an expiration date on it.
Okay.
People could very reasonably disagree with that, but I think we have to take a guess on the future of Verizon.
Then there's nobody else except for Verizon.
American Tower, so they have no leads on anyone else.
Wow.
At this point.
At this point, because I inquired in that too. That's the other thing, we could say that we're not willing to renegotiate at this time and see how things go. But then if Verizon cancels on them and it just goes away, then we just have an empty cell tower that we could have been making $12,000 a year on, but we're not. So it's difficult because you're predicting the fates and the movements of large companies that are very hard to communicate. So, and they're not as clunky as governments normally making decisions, but they're kind of clunky. So seeing how they're going to go is a little difficult. Included in here, I have the adjustment to the lease agreement that's been made in the past by the township. I also have the original lease that was done. So I believe the original lease was done in here in 2007. The adjustment was made before in 2016. And I have included minutes on where that was passed originally. Yeah. So anything else on this? All right, because obviously there's enough literature to read through before next month as well. All right, next item. Yeah, the street light districts. So street light districts, and I believe we visited this before when we were doing the budget in the spring, but it's left in an odd place in that 2/3, I believe it's about 2/3 of the street light districts, and I think it's on page 41 of the audit, is where it breaks this down, the income versus the outgoing. But the street light districts have expired, 2/3 of them, or 2/3 of the amount of money at least. And so those are being carried by the general fund at this time. The other 1/3 have special assessments on them. and it's unusual to be split up like that. It would appear to me that the past, because of being in that situation, has been to let these expire. And I think it's reasonable if a general fund carries the street lights as one of its expenses, for they cover anyone that's driving down it. So roads are obviously a controversial thing when you get into, they're controversial no matter what you do. And so the other direction we could go is reestablishing the special assessment districts and putting those back in place. And I'm guessing that would not be fun necessarily, and I don't know if it's necessary.
I like the idea of the general fund, but, you know, where streetlights are concerned, you know, we need lights at night. The population, there's a lot of deviant people out there as of lately, you know, and lights kind of deter that somewhat, and if people are putting security cameras out to catch the bad people, basically, or the people that are wanting to do naughty things, and then lights are important. They're important to have, streetlights. The general fund is a good way to manage it.
I agree. I think that should be part of the general fund. That's something that we have to have the lights on. It's for the general public, everyone's using it.
As long as consumers are putting them LED lights in, shoot. Should slow down, no?
It's not quite like that,
I
but
was hoping.
we're replacing them as they burn out or they need to be replaced.
Okay.
Is my understanding. So, and the majority of our streetlights are not LED lights.
Right.
Because I can tell you, when I look at because we have two separate bills, LED lights and streetlights.
Oh.
And the LED lights are significantly lower.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe there are a number of them flashing, just like the one in the
So
village.
we
So
need to start.
if, when people see that, if they want to report them, and then consumers replaces them, that ends up lowering the bill.
Okay.
We got
I will
Anyone else on anything on the street project?
Deviants.
Oh, one sitting in the back of the room. Jokers. Next, we have maintenance interruptions. So it's unusual, and obviously I brief it in there. And you know, the previous supervisor, he had hired some friends in maintenance positions, which I'm fine with. I don't think anyone should be punished for who the friends are, that type of thing. And we've worked with them very well. You know, and maintenance has been way behind. They've been short. They've been short-staffed, and they've been shorted on equipment for a number of years. I would say, I think when the sewer went in 2006, and the township started to get into financial trouble with that, which we've heard, we've got about 3-4 years, something like that, before that fund goes upside down. We're having an assessment on that. We'll probably have to establish a revolving fund. It'll be complex finances. I think the township started getting tight and really budgeting things, which is good, which is important. But what you can do in maintenance is you can not maintain things and you don't depreciate it anywhere in the finances, so it looks like you're saving money, but you're really just spending in the future. And we have dilapidated equipment and things like that. And there were things in the year before we came into office, there were things put into the budget as capital expenditures, and those things were not spent. So they were probably trying to cover part of that, they just weren't followed up with, they weren't done at that time. So, you know, maintenance is going fine. They've been working very well with me. And Barnes, I know, he has stopped by and talked to them, that type of thing, and they encounter the public out when they're in fields or in cemeteries. I've been out in cemeteries multiple times. When there's public there, they stop by and they ask about the gravesite, they ask about maintaining it, cutting the grass, bushes, decorations, various stuff. They interact with them just fine. There have been poles hit out there and they ask what's being done to get those fixed and those types of things, which has been its own hassle to get some of those done. And that's perfectly normal. This seems to be going beyond that, and there have been previous contacts with personnel in the township, and I talked with them just a few months after we got in about that things that were left undone, various lights they weren't maintained, stuff like that, I would handle and we would get done. In this specific case, I was driving past the crossing guard position on M120, and I was waving Troy, and someone was there, and he was was, not trying, he was jumping into the street, yelling at cars, and I thought, and swearing, and I thought it might have just been at me driving by, but I heard it was not. It was at other people as well. So it's kind of unusual. And I'm just bringing it to the board's attention. I'm not recommending any action on it at this time. Yeah, the comments from the public, I can address that. It's not good from the public. The maintenance was covering it because our crossing guard had some medical issues and had to leave the position.
So what does the maintenance end up doing when he's stopping there and just talking with them? Do they continue on their work, doing what they're supposed to be doing, or do they just?
It depends. It depends on what they're doing. I mean, in a crossing guard position, you're just standing there.
Yeah, right.
And we haven't had anyone crossing there and working on resolving some of that anyways. And, if they're trying to do some weed whacking, something like that, you would obviously have to stop that activity. And they encounter that in the public, in a parking lot, or when you're somewhere at the cemetery. If they're on a mower and you're going by someone, you obviously don't just mow right past them and shoot them with a bunch of grass clippings. You wait. And so they encounter it.
Interesting.
All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
No.
All public comment, you're right.
Yes. Final public comment. Moving a little fast. It's a fairly long meeting, audit presentation and everything. So, but at this time, we will take public comments on anything. If anyone would like to come up and lecture.
I just had a couple questions. We're not on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll allow people to do one public comment in the first public comment and one public comment in the second. That's no problem.
I was just wondering why the health insurance fees fluctuate like every month. I was just wondering that. And then also I was also wondering, like when something is purchased and is put under a fund that it doesn't directly relate to, how is that addressed as far as that fund being reimbursed for another funds? Like, how is that fund being reimbursed for paying for another fund's expense? I just wondered how that works. And then, let's go with that right now.
Well, so I think the second thing you're talking about, budget adjustments.
Let me answer. First,
I'm trying to understand.
health insurance fees.
Yeah.
Okay, we have had a lot of people leave, a lot of people come. So that's the fluctuation. Yep,
Same thing.
and that, it's gonna level out, I hope,
No,
and
I was
stay
just
level.
asking.
But
I
yeah,
understand.
that's it, yep, so it's people coming and going, people being added, people being taken off. Now, as far as the fund reimbursement, I'm not sure if you're.
There was this one thing that was like a bumper for a plow truck was purchased and it was put under elections.
Oh, that, basically what happens is I just do a journal entry and move it from the elections to the maintenance department.
Okay.
Well, does that end up coming for quarterly budget adjustments? An
No,
adjustment like
because
that?
it's, no, it just hits the line item because it's all general fund items. In that instance, the elections and the maintenance are all coming out of the general fund. I just do the adjustments in the line items, so it changes. Now, if it's for the funds, then I actually physically have to transfer the funds from the fire fund to the general fund, and I do the journal entries, and then the money transfers from account to account.
And then I remembered my other one. Our fiscal year ends March 31st, I believe.
Correct.
And so we have a new budget. Is the new budget, is that accounting for the bills that aren't paid in March that are put on to April?
No, I do journal entries to anything that's in March, that should have been paid in March, that's done in April. I do a journal entry, bring it back into the previous year for the year end, and then I reverse that so it shows up in the books this year.
Okay. And then, if, one thing that if you could do, just to like make it easier, like in some of the invoice things,
Sure.
it'll say, like when something is paid, and it'll say like, the month is supposed to be paid.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's a month that's also in there that maybe you don't
necessarily
I'll
want
double
it
check and
there.
make sure we're getting the right.
Yeah, so
Because
if
you
you
might
just
need the
like-
descriptions, because a lot of times you,
Yeah.
when you bring into a vendor, the last description comes up.
Okay.
So if you
So
don't
that would make
change
it much
that,
easier
yeah.
for us
It's
as
just a-
people
it's a
to be able to understand like what months
system.
you're really paying for, because when it says like
Yep,
May and
just check.
July and there's only like one payment, it's like, okay, so I'm confused right now, so.
Nope, that's
That's
okay,
all I
yeah,
asked.
that's basically it.
Okay.
The system has a lovely thing that just brings in a description for you and you have to change it, so.
Okay, and then, rumor has it that our tax account was bounced, and,
Well, it was,
is-
but we.
okay, so I mean, is that all being
Yes, that's
addressed
being
and
addressed.
whatever happened,
Yep.
and it's going to be, okay, that's all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hi, Eve Hamstra, 9287 Westlake Road. Okay, so you covered the ORV registration tonight. Is there going to be anything similar for golf carts that
No,
are not
not
considered
at
for
this
our
point.
ORV?
Not at this point.
So there's no registration required, no, well, we don't need stickers, but I was thinking some kind of
No, there's no registration.
so it goes into effect on the 17th.
The 19th.
With the rules that were established in the ordinance last month. So, nothing's required, like,
No, I don't need to, we're not requiring you to register your golf carts or get a sticker for it. But the local police departments know that we have an ordinance, so now they're going to make sure they will be policing.
yeah, and should we be carrying one of these ordinances, a copy of this ordinance with us?
Well,
So
they know the ordinances, so
Okay.
they're very much aware, and if you're breaking the ordinance, they're gonna say, there's an ordinance in place.
Well, I mean, I live on.
And a lot of it is
There's
common
quite a
sense,
few
yeah.
of them, that come through my.
Yeah, there's a lot now.
That's my house.
There are now, yeah, there are now.
And
There was.
some of them are in compliance,
And
many
some
of them
are
are
not.
not. I mean, I would say 95% are good.
Yeah, there's always that
People
one or
just
two.
cruising, but we get a few, especially the ORVs, come by, like,
Yeah.
and we live right there, Padley Park, and I'm telling you, they step on the gas when they get in front of my house after the curb. If somebody were to walk across that street,
That is a weird curve too, that's a tight curve.
yeah, two tight turns, but I come out the first to one, and, they step on it, they take off like, but most of them, I gotta say, 95% are really just people who can follow rules and, they're fine. But- So there's no way to really report these people then, if they are.
I mean, you can
We see
report this.
police and DNR very seldom.
Right, I mean, you
So-
can call the
Unless they're
cops
called.
on them.
Yeah.
And what has happened recently is because this has become an issue in the county, is that they have been going out to places and pulling people over and writing more tickets and that type of thing.
If they're called. Basically.
Before, so recently, as it's been going, it seems like they have taken it of their own initiative. Not because they were called. And I know there have been points in the past where they set up on a certain road for a certain length of time, and I don't think that was driven by residents or the township, to my knowledge. That was in previous years, has been of the police, the DNR, conservation officers, or whoever might be doing it of their own initiative.
They're pretty busy, so.
They have a lot to do.
That's a
Well,
small
lot to
thing
cover.
for them to.
Right. So they take a focus on it at a certain time, it seems to me.
You go, go.
Okay, just wanted to make sure there was nothing we had to do. Thank you.
There's you made me think of something. Carrie wants to.
Okay, well, that's a good thing.
I expected a lot of people to talk in the ORV as we've been doing it, and we've had a lot less public comment than I
Well,
thought.
I mean, it's been in the packets, but now I'm confused because what was the speed limit supposed to be?
The one today, the
No,
adjustment
well,
today?
the ORV is supposed to be at least.
So I had to put in there that you could,
What we did was eliminate the line where it says nothing more than 30 miles an hour.
For roads,
Right.
not for the speed that an ORV is supposed to be able to go on a road, for the speed limit
If
on
you're-
the roads that you can go on.
If your speed limit on your road is 35, then you can drive golf carts and ORVs, or you cannot?
You can.
Now,
There's a
Because I
list
was
of roads.
confused,
List of roads, there is a list of roads in the ordinance that you just can't drive on.
yes, yeah, that I know, that you can't drive on, but I thought that originally it was stated as 30 miles.
That in there.
Oh,
We eliminated that.
right, so that's now.
which, I mean, in that case, it eliminates all of your dirt roads, which are 55 miles an hour. And so it limited it so much that it limited it almost out of existence.
Exactly.
Well, I think that's where people get confused.
And
I mean, I confused.
it was confusing.
Right,
And that's why we had that taken out.
so now,
It's just you can't go on these roads.
You can't.
It's 5.
Where's the
Yes,
best place to
also-
find a copy of the ordinance?
Appreciate you coming.
It'll be,
I will,
Because we
I've got to
can,
read.
we can get the word out too. you know,
right,
to
well, I mean, that's
Word-
what,
the
This
word
is
out there.
done.
there's so much bad information all the time.
Both ordinances put on the website.
Right,
Okay.
And then you
Right.
can come in here and get the ordinance, and you
Okay.
can get copies of the
right, because originally I thought,
registration for
yeah.
the ORVs too.
Right, originally I thought that if your speed limit was above 30 miles an hour on your road, no, they couldn't use it. And I was like, well, there isn't any road on the list.
Right,
And that was exactly,
Like,
and that was
that's the
why.
list of roads.
It was like, that's one of the ordinances that nobody can
This
use.
is what it says out in the ordinance right now. US
Right.
31 entire length, M120, White Lake
Oh,
Drive.
that I know.
Raleigh Thompson.
Yeah, and that all
Road.
makes sense.
That's
because-
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, but by
That's it.
posting, yeah, but by, when I had it in there, any public road or street with a posted speed limit of greater than 30 miles an hour, that would be
Yeah.
basically every road.
Exactly, and that's
So,
what, that's
and
what
that
was
was very much,
confusing.
very
That's why
quickly
we
brought to
addressed
my
that.
attention, and that's why we
Okay.
put the amendment in to take that out.
I fought against that, making sure we had that taken out.
Thanks, Jerry.
I was a big
Well, I mean,
proponent of that one.
yeah, well, I don't think that it took rocket science to figure out that you had to do that, because nobody could use it, that was my point.
I don't have an
I was
argument.
like, you know,
Especially that's why we've been fighting for having this in this township for a long time now, so we've been all wanting this happen, so.
well,
A lot of people have them, so.
oh, yeah, then, but as long
Gotta make
as,
it legal.
you know, some people think that it already is legal, and they've always thought it was legal, and they think by putting an ordinance in, now you're screwing it all up, and it's like, no. Well, I understand, I fully understand, but there's a lot of them that don't, so.
Well, they will.
All right, just clarifying that.
All right.
Any other public comment? I didn't either. Oh, did you have a question?
I got a
Yeah.
question. Chief Stiles, I know you're busy over there, but I got a question about, I noticed in the report it said that we've had more calls, it's the highest ever recorded. Can you
People are sick.
elaborate on?
People are sick.
Just people are sick?
People are sick. I can't give you a rhyme or reason.
Okay,
Can't give you a
okay.
day, can't give you a reason, just people are sick, driving like, not well, and using illicit drugs. and-
Right. So the other, like the other question was like Bradley Thompson and Russell Road, like there's accidents a lot there when we do the light changing.
Yep.
Do we have to do the light changing?
So the light changing, I inquired into a number of months ago, actually this spring when they were changing it over.
Yeah.
And my inquiry was, why don't we just keep it the same all year, at least that way it's consistent? Because I've been sitting there when people have just blown right through the red light.
Right.
And you're like, well, it would have not been too hard for me to be in the middle. And the road commission does not agree with that.
The road commission. Okay, that's,
The road commission and MDOT have control of the roads, the township does not.
that's crazy.
It's always been that way.
Yeah, my relationship with them has been good. That's why I've promoted, I've tried to promote coming in that we need to be friends with them because we need favors, essentially. And some people have disagreed with that and they think they can tell the road commission what to do, but legally, that is not how that works. And so I've tried to promote that idea, and we're seeing with the stuff on Mission Linda Road right now for being upgraded, you know, that's really a favor they were doing. We got a discount on the materials, discount on the hauling, and we just have to pay for the grading and moving it around. That's the road commission being friendly to us. So, and I've inquired into a ton of these different things, and they've been okay.
So statistically, we have more accidents at that light change when the light changes every year, right? Is that right, Chief Stiles? Would you say that, or is it not
I
a difference?
would not say that. We have less accidents there than we do at Bradley Thompson and 120. Yeah, not even,
There's no-
yeah, we probably get
But there's
a
no.
half dozen there.
Okay.
we get fatalities there all the time. So, yeah,
That needs prayer.
the light, to give you all some history, the light is set that way because of Michigan's Adventure.
Yep.
At one point, Michigan Adventure had paid an extra fee for that. They stopped doing that, but it's still in a cycle. It just happens that way, October through April, and April through October.
Okay.
That's the way it's
I'm
always
just
been.
curious, yeah.
And it's usually the first 3 weeks because people can't see the big signs, they're all trying to.
Yeah.
That's because they're like,
They can't
switch as
see the
they're
light.
driving.
But yes, that, in all honesty, we actually have more traffic accidents when it's actually a functioning red, yellow, green than we do when it is flashing. It's just the first 2 weeks and you won't see it now and those spring. And when it comes back, they'll get more, because we have an increase in traffic, that is the reason.
Right.
Because our traffic dies out.
I'm way more cautious now going through it.
Statistically, percentage-wise, accidents, that's 50% higher than that all day long. Yeah, not even, if we get a dozen there a year, I'd be hard pressed. That we probably get 2 to 3 dozen, easy. So, yeah, not even, yeah, and those are usually lower speed actually than those. Well, we all know we've got 2 fatalities. Which, if you guys didn't, deputy, I'm gonna screw his name up, that was killed 25 years ago at the corner. Well, thank you. Is getting, the M120 is getting renamed through Dalton Township to his name on Friday at 4 p.m. at Main and, I got the email right. Just came, but yes, they're gonna dedicate the road to him. Who's coming? Van Workum will be out here to speak, I believe.
No, there you go. You better
I'll
talk
stay
fast.
alive.
You better talk fast.
6 people, they're good. I got
bet it
4
was a
on
little-
tonight. M120, Muskegon County, Dalton Township, the intersection of Main and 4th Street, Twin Lake, at 4 p.m. on Friday. The section of M120 between Bard and 4th shall be known as Deputy Ernest Heckel Memorial Highway. He was killed in line of duty in 1995. So, if you want to be a part of that, that's going to be there on Friday. So, but yes, it's kind of a cool thing, but still the most dangerous road, one of the most dangerous roads in Muskegon County, no matter what.
Should there be a blinking yellow light there? Or is that not?
What's that?
Should there be a blinking yellow light there, or is that not?
Good luck. We, if you haven't, did an RSA, the MDOT and ourselves, and the road commission did an RSA. We had 568 vehicle accidents between Dawson and US 31, with 18 fatalities in 5 years. And the easiest answer they gave us was, well, there's no money. So, have at it. So that's what it's going to be. There is no change. There is no anticipated change, and there won't be anticipated change. So all I can ask is when you see us, please pull over and slow down.
M120 is.
We almost got whacked last week. Almost took the back of my car off again. So I don't know why people have to be in such a hurry, but please slow down. And tell your friends. You want to talk about telling people things, please tell friends to slow down.
And 120 needs a left turn lane.
It ain't gonna ever happen.
I know.
I assume that when that happens, I assume that will happen, but it'll probably be decades, and then we'll run water and sewer up at the same time to the lakes. And so that's gonna be tens of millions of dollars. And so, yeah, and it probably. I know 2 people had motioned that they had another comment, but they had already public commented. I would like anyone that hasn't made a public comment that would like to make one, and then we can revisit both of you. I know we're morphing into a working session, but I'm comfortable with that.
Mary Jean Smith, 1892 Westlake Road. Is the bridge done, or are they gonna be putting guardrails up?
The bridge is done, and I inquired into the guardrails, and they made that section wider and in such a way that the road commission said that guardrails should not be needed or necessary.
Yeah.
I assume when a car flies off and ends up upside down, at that point, then no change. I'll probably revisit the issue. Well, hopefully that doesn't occur in the rut, in that widening like that.
And it's not it's smooth.
Yeah, it's not a bump, it's smooth.
It's not like a.
I mean, I think it came out well. You know, it's unfortunate about the bridge, the funding gap for the bridge, but otherwise I think that project seemed to come out fairly well.
And they didn't put in as much footage of the culvert originally said they were going to, they put in what, 4 8-foot sections, 30-some feet, and they were originally said 60.
Well, you don't need to.
So it's not an eyesore like we thought
That
it
was
was.
the drainage.
Right.
That's not the.
Not bad.
Do they take down that black plastic, or is that up to the property owners to do that?
I do not know.
I think in the spring, we're gonna have to put up a kayak crossing sign there.
Yep.
Because I think, I'm assuming if it was me, my kids would, they'll float up there, they'll get out, carry the
Yeah,
kayak
float,
across, put it back in there and go.
Yeah.
Well, there will be water
Yeah, we need
at
more water
times.
first. But yeah, and I already saw, because I spent, because of the channel issues needing to be addressed, I've spent some time down there, and I've seen people portaging already. And so I think that may have been a somewhat common thing anyway. I'm not sure, I've never taken a kayak through there myself, but. And in the spring, it had some water, and I even saw people portaging then.
Yeah.
Good, any other public comments? Any at all? Last call on public comment?
I just had a question, why did Michigan Adventure stop paying the fee?
That was years ago, it was
Oh,
something
really?
that they had done, yeah, it had nothing to
Okay.
do with the township, it was something
Okay, I just
between them and
wondered.
MDOT. We have, well, same as the street, we have no bearing over any of that. So it was
Okay.
something that the road commission and Michigan Adventures had.
Gotcha.
So, Mr. Pulver would be the one,
Yeah, the history of it.
yeah.
All right, any board comment? Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second by Bill.